welcome to Level 1 Restoration Behind the Scenes. We're out here today with something a little bit different. The car is kind of the normal thing for us, but this one happens to be one that I bought, and it literally just got in here late last week and came off of the trailer, and I haven't touched it at all. Literally just looked at it, put it up on the lift, and look at the underside of it. So what we have here is 74 Formula 455. So they made approximately 700 of these cars, and it's a pretty cool color. Aqua Mist it's called. And sometimes it looks really blue, but when you park a blue car next to it, it definitely changes a lot at that point in time. But a really cool original paint car. I've been through it, paint gauged it, used my gauge to see if it's original paint, and it is. Lots of 2s and 3s at the most for the mil thickness of the paint. You couldn't measure the hood because the hood's fiberglass. So, but you can just look at it and tell that it's original paint. Other than that, the coolest thing about this car, which got me to buy it, and I probably would have no matter what, but this car was sold right here in Colorado, brand new. So I bought this car from a gentleman out of Long Island, New York. And he was a survivor collector, is a survivor collector. This car with just 15,000 miles, he just didn't really want to add any miles to this car, but it's a wonderful running and driving car. Really a testament to the lady that bought this car new and kept it. I understand that she went to college to become an engineer. And, you know, she definitely is a very particular person with the way she took care of this car. So we're going to take a look at it here, a little bit more of it, and some of the cool things I see right off the bat, because again, I'm looking at this almost for the first time. It has both of its original headlights, which is really cool. The obvious thing that it's missing are its tires. So when it was brand new, it had FR78 14-inch radial white wall tires. So this was the first year for not for the first year for radial tires, but this was getting pretty normal by 74 with radial tuned suspension and all that type of thing. So I'll be looking for a set of tires. I would like to get a set of original dated tires. I know they're out there. I found one already, probably a Uniroyal tire. And but that and the trim rings, I don't know what the story is on the trim rings. They're an earlier style of trim ring, so it should have more of the rounded brushed 14-inch trim ring. I think I've located a new old stock set of those. And the only other thing that when we lifted this car up is it has all of its original exhaust except that the muffler's been replaced. So, you know, a car that sits around and stuff like that, it's going to get moisture in there, and it's really a pretty common thing, even for a survivor car, to have the muffler replaced. But let's take a look under the hood, and we'll see what we can find under here. We just restored a 73 455 Super Duty Formula, which we'll be showing to you pretty soon. So I've been getting pretty familiar with some of these details. A couple of things that really jump out to me. I love the color variation here. I mean, this is glossier than the radiator support. This still has its original duct tube, which is pretty crazy. And there's an engine label, kind of like a scannable label there that they put on these cars. And the paint just looks remarkable, the condition. I know from when we had it on the lift, the oil pan had very little paint on the bottom of it. And sometimes they have a lot of paint and sometimes they don't. This one doesn't have much paint on the underneath. One thing that's really fun to see here, the gloss level on this, really just a beautiful finish. I'd say that's probably a 60% gloss. This is a plating, it's not a paint, and it's kind of a brownish type of a color. That's similar on all of the Pontiacs from this era. This little washer or overflow holder here, it's shinier than a lot of this other stuff. These parts were dipped in black paint and they were typically a little bit glossier. This tube from the valve cover to the air cleaner, these go back and forth between like a black and a silver color. This one clearly is this of the silver variety, which is pretty neat. I've had people in judging tell me that I've lost points before because I had either a silver or a black, and it clearly could have been either way. There may have been some rhyme or reason, but I don't know what it is, but they certainly come in two different platings. But nice little striped hoses, original radiator cap, just a wonderful car. Starts and runs and drives just as nice as it looks. It's been well cared for. We'll take a look at the upholstery now. So what we're looking at here is a white standard interior. Pretty unusual to see white upholstery on these. And of course it's white and black. You wouldn't have a white dash pad. And these cars didn't have a white console. But there's the AM/FM radio, tilt steering wheel. I believe this was still one step up steering wheel in '74, not 100% sure about that. Does have the gauges, the rear window defroster, and then that fun CB radio there. But just really just so nice. The condition of all of this stuff. These cars we mentioned in another on a GTO video, but this car still has the, you wouldn't really call it a dual gate action, but it is still like a ratcheting shifter action if you hold it over to the right side. So this being a 74, it still had that. They may have gone away from that after this year for a while. I know the 78, W72, and special edition cars, they had this as well. So usually it has it, but maybe on a lower performance car, it might not. Just a fun little detail. 160 mile an hour speedometer. You know, it's just really nice. And what I really love about these cars, this will help us in the restoration of some of the 74 Super Duty Firebirds and Trans Ams that we have. Even though we have some really nice cars, this is just a wonderful reference for some of our future restorations. And I may or may not have this car long term, but we will capture the details with, you know, hundreds and hundreds of photographs. So we will definitely not lose any of this information going forward. Let's have a look in the trunk. Before I get into the trunk, this is a really cool detail. This, the fuel or the license plate door, pretty unique on these cars. In 73, this was black. I see in 74, this is clearly galvanized, has this little tab. It has a plating on it similar to the alternator brackets, which is pretty cool, and a hollow little rivet there. It has the license plate screws have 4 little tabs to it. On earlier cars, they only have 2, so I have to look into that a little bit closer. And then there would be the original gas cap, which is pretty nice. So, looking in here, this is pretty interesting. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. Maybe one of you folks watching this would know, but so we have what looks like an original trunk mat, but under it is probably the actual trunk mat, and you can see we haven't cleaned or detailed or anything. So there appears to be 2 trunk mats here. I'm not exactly sure yet. We'll have to totally look into that, but a nice detail here with the trunk paint and the aqua here and how they kind of blend and come together, and the really nice trunk seal here. There's lots of glue, lots of black glue oozing out here and there, which is pretty typical. And then, you know, here, this was the CB radio antenna, which is too bad, but it's part of the car's history, so it's pretty cool. And then when they changed the tires, they changed all 5 of them. So just another example of the type of person that that this gal was to keep this car so nice. I would have only changed 4 tires on it. I wish she would have, because then I'd have the original spare, but that's okay. It's all fun and all part of the car's history. Kind of neat, just a fun little restoration detail. On the taillight bezel here, the studs coming through here are still body color, so those were, you know, painted completely. And then you got the body color coming through there. And while we're talking about that, kind of interesting, 74 is a crossover year. So this was the first year for this, what I call the modern taillight setup and bumper setup. So prior to this in 73, this car had a chrome back bumper. And so that's, you know, more common for collectors, but this car still retains the old roof. So this is a 70 to 74 roof on this car. And then in 75, and then, you know, what people are familiar with the newer Trans Ams, they had a larger back window and, you know, just a totally different roof. So this is halfway between a modern, later 70s Firebird and the early car. And a couple of things about that. So just on a quick side note, this top, we cleaned a little spot of it. It cleans right up. I can't wait to clean this. I'm dying to spend the time on this. But this engine on this car, this 455 engine, it has the same exact camshaft that a 70 GTO with a 455 would have with an automatic transmission, or a 71 or a 72 or a 73, all the non-round port. So I say that refers to the heads. That's the most high the most high performance engine had the exhaust ports were round. So the D-port motors like the 70 GTO or any of the, you know, subsequent years, if it had a 455, this car still has the same cam. So really, in essence, power-wise, this car is right there with an earlier 70s 455 equipped car, except for the, you know, the 455HO, which would clearly be better. But still a pretty good runner, these. Pretty spunky. It'll definitely fry the tires. A fun little car. You got, you know, they're just a blast to drive. So if you come across one of these cars with this engine, it's pretty special. I think they made around 700 of these cars, and I'm sure there's very few of them in this condition. Let's take a look at some of this paperwork that came with this little Firebird here. So one of the reasons I bought this car, I mean, I love Survivors just in general, but it came here from Colorado. So it was sold new at Seifert Pontiac, and that was out in Aurora. Years later, that becomes Suss Pontiac, and I had a friend that worked at Suss Pontiac for a long time. I was over there all the time back in the 80s and 90s probably. But here's the window sticker from this car, and you can see it had quite a few options. Power windows and floor mats, and it did have the side, body side moldings, wheel opening moldings, vinyl top, recessed windshield wipers, which you never see them without that. That was almost a standard thing. The big thing, obviously, is the 4-barrel 455 engine. Is a $210 option. Air conditioning was $420. And then the AM/FM radio is $135. But really nice to have this. The lady that bought this car knew where she got it as a graduation gift. Really was meticulous and took care of everything. This is a new for 74 seat belt interlocking system. You have to have the seat belt connected for the car to start. And this is really neat. People could benefit from this today. So when these cars are functioning properly, they wanted you to slowly press the accelerator to the floor one time and then release it. So if the accelerator pump is working like it's supposed to, one slow push to the floor sprays quite a bit of fuel in the carburetor. So, you know, unless it's a crazy wintertime condition, that's really all it needs. And then that activates the choke, and it would start right up. It says if it fails to start, repeat that process. But anyway, then it would go right on to fast idle, and it tells you what to do with the flooded engine. That's pretty nice information that people that have old cars now that didn't have them back in the day, they would be good to get a hold of one of these and understand that information. This is another fun thing they saved, all of the information for their CB radio they put on there. That was really popular in the mid-70s, and it still functions. Here's the antenna mount right there. So all that cool information she kept. And so here we have her order form. Mary was her name. We'll just leave it at that. And then there's the ciphered information, all the handwritten dealer stuff that they did. They traded in a 73 Le Mans, a luxury Le Mans on this. So they got $3,586 for it in trade-in for this car. So that was a brand new car, and apparently she wasn't interested in that as a gift, so she got the Firebird. And then here's a little bit more factory dealership documentation. And then the build sheet, which this came from under the carpet or the back seat, or it could have been anywhere. It might have even been in the glove compartment when the thing was brand new. There would have been about 5 of these with this car, but it just lays out everything that from the body plant, the Fisher body plant, and it gives the codes for the springs, and this is how people know what to put on a spring tag, that you see those on a restored car, on the sway bars and all of that stuff. They have a tag and a number and a 2-letter code. It all comes from here, and it all correlates really nice. This particular car has the leaf spring tags still, the sway bar tags, the rear, the front coil springs, and then the leaf springs, but has all that stuff in place with just 15,000 original miles. You would expect a lot of that to still be on there. Really great documentation, some customer information stuff. And then when she sold this car, here's some of the shipping information mixed in there. And a letter to the guy that she sold it to, that was 10 or 12 years ago. Let's see if this, the first guy was in 2006. So then the guy that I bought this car from, that was like in 2010, I think. But more stuff, more information on the CB and emission control information. And there's the packet that all this owner's manual stuff would have been in. That was probably her dad, was signed on that, and then more CB radio stuff. So, and then of course this is really fun. This is her on the day, June 1st, 1974, in her graduation gown with this car. The only difference between these photos and this car now is that it has different tires on it today than it had back then, but only 15,000 miles. So everything else on the car is almost exactly as it was back 50 years ago. So pretty amazing car. I'm really, really happy I picked it up.